investigate something. For example, here, automatic treatment planning based on three-dimensional dose distribution. And then MatRad cannot do deep learning. It cannot do automatic treatment planning itself, but people take the parts from the MatRad code that they need. So they, for example, they compute dose influence matrices, or they compute doses, they put in their data, and then they basically do their research project. And that's how it works. You see, like Flash was already mentioned, used, like there's a paper that used it for some things. So that's kind of the intention. Like, it's not that, I really want to stress this, it's not that can I do this aspect of therapy, this aspect, really just the basic functionality, and then you choose what to use, what to modify, and if possible, what to contribute. So if you have questions in the future about, is there a feature, the best thing is to go to GitHub, or first, like, the best thing is go to GitHub, check the code. If you see something, go through the branches, or write an issue and ask if it is there. Um, um, and if you really want to have it in there, then make a feature request and offer how you can contribute, because that's the heart of MatRad. The heart of MatRad is contribution and exchange, and not we doing stuff for everybody. So, okay, that's about, like, I think, the questions, and we should now get going with how to install um, um, MatRad. And I guess we have, how much time do we have allocated for this? 1.5 hours. I don't think we will need 1.5 hours to present the installation and, like, doing the first, like, executing the first script or doing the first things in the user interface. But we also want to use this time to discuss problems that might have occurred with people that have already installed it and saw that something didn't work. We cannot guarantee that we can solve all these problems. So I know I have to make all these disclaimers, but it's a research software. It's tested on a few systems. There is some automatic testing, but not in the extent that a company that focuses on software development would do it. So we might end up with a situation that it doesn't work for everyone. And like, on the one hand, I really want to apologize for that if anybody has issues that we cannot solve, and then you end up with having only, like, watch along what we are doing and learning by that. But on the other hand, I'm also extremely thankful if you then tell us that it doesn't work, because that helps us to improve it. And then maybe for the next school or the next masterclass or the next course that we give or that someone else gives, we can remove these problems, and or we are made aware of that. So like, I'm really sorry if something doesn't work for you, or like something crashes, or something will fail, some plan will not go, or I don't know, the installation will not even run through, or the optimizer will crash, or whatsoever. Things like that happen. I think for research software, the error rate is it's not too big, so usually it works. But the problem is also that in the situation we have now, like, where this is like an online event where you all have to do it on your own computers, we really don't have a controlled environment for how MatRad is running. We do these courses, usually we just have laptops, we know exactly their specifications, we can set it up, we can test it in front, like before the course, but here we really cannot do this. So I really hope it works for as many of you as possible. But if it doesn't, please don't be angry with us, and just know that you help us to make the software then better for future users. And then you are free to participate again in the tutorials if you think you missed out on something. And of course, you are always free to just repeat everything we do here, watch it back, and then if you maybe manage to resolve the problem, you manage to resolve the problem afterwards, then you can basically go along with the recordings. So that's also one good purpose of the recordings. If you feel left behind or something like this, and we couldn't like really solve your particular problem, um, that you can basically take it slower afterwards and after the issue is solved and do the exercises and the hands-on sessions again. Okay, so Damir just posted a link into the chat for all the people who are in here, and it should be accessible to everybody here who knows this, who has access to this. I think everybody of you knows this page about the masterclass school, and there's a section called MatRad instructions. And in principle, it explains everything, I hope, well enough to install it. And it has like a few sections here. This you basically know now. I like here it writes in 2 sentences what I basically spent half an hour or more talking about. So I already touched on this minimum requirements. There are no hard minimum requirements, but treatment planning is kind of a difficult and computationally expensive problem. It's not a small problem. It's not like getting scikit-learn from Python and train a very small problem with 100 data points or something like this for like people can do with machine learning all the time on their home systems now. It's a large problem. Patient files can be large. The dose information can be large. And you can tune this down, but there is like a point where the results are not satisfying anymore. So if you decrease the resolution to an extent that everything runs in 10 seconds with 100 megabytes of RAM, you end up with not getting what you actually try to achieve. So some problems become not feasible anymore because the sampling is so coarse that, for example, you cannot achieve a good tumor coverage because the dose grid is way too coarsely sampled. So meaning why there are no hard minimum requirements, you might run into issues when your system is like very limited. Like you have a very, like here's an example is a 2 gigabyte system. And the recommendation we have is like having 8 gigabytes. So usually it works on 4 gigabyte system. I have seen most of the stuff. But with 8 gigabyte, you should get most of the problems that we give now or like give in the next days, you should be able to run them. The CPU speed only scales the time it takes. So if a very long, very slow processor, like I still remember like having a computer which had like a display that showed megahertz, and it was in turbo mode, it was 100 megahertz, and in normal mode, it was 10. So hopefully you don't have such a system. So, but like in principle, it scales the time it takes. And here I also want to say I might be too fast because among other reasons, due to the pandemic, working from home so much, I have tuned my computer quite a lot, and it might be quicker than your systems you have. So I try to make this, but really do not hesitate to say, oh, wait, like my computer is still optimizing. It's very like it's at iteration 50 and we tell, and I'm already done with the second plan or something like this. I try to keep everything slow, but that's also something, please tell us if the things go too quickly. Just like via a short message in the chat or something like this. So much about the requirements. You can read a little bit more here on this GitHub link, which points to the wiki that I earlier mentioned, where you find technical information, and you can always look stuff up there. So I will go into detail on variables that and data structures that are in MatRad for those people who have Matlab licenses. But it also might make sense to just read up on something, especially after the school, if you're interested in continuing like research work or something similar. So now let's get to the MatRad installation. So here's like a step-by-step instruction. And basically we describe 2 ways here. The first way, the recommended way, is to really use the source code I think students and so on often can get it for free, not at every university and so on, depends on the institution and the licenses and so on. If they have a deal with MathWorks, I don't know. So that's, of course, that's kind of a limited access solution, but if you have a MATLAB installation, even if it has no toolboxes, so it can be a bare MATLAB installation, you can use it for this tutorial, and then the recommended way is to use the source code directly. MATLAB is a language that directly interprets, so it does not compile. I think in the background it pre-compiles and then runs, but you can basically, it's an interpreter, so you can directly run the source code. It's like Python in that sense. And the second, if you don't have a MATLAB installation, you get the standalone. That's the way, for example, we run all the master classes for the school children. So because they usually don't have MATLAB, so it's very surprising if school children already have a MATLAB installation or something. So this is the other way. For this tutorial, you can follow, I would say, 75% of the exercises when you do the second way, and 100% of the exercises when you do the first way. Like if everything works, let's say it this way. Which means that many of our exercises will run in the standalone as graphical user interface interactions. So it will be simple treatment planning problems demonstrating differences between photons and particles, protons and carbon ions, showing uncertainties and so on. It will not be the most advanced treatment planning problems. It's more like an introduction hands-on, what we can do with it. Okay, so I know that this is now the other way around, but since the download of the standalone might take longer if you are doing it now and haven't done it before, than the sorry, I just saw the chat message and then I know I was wanted to say it anyway. So we will start with the standalone installation for those who don't have a MATLAB, bare MATLAB installation. And you might already have an installation from the masterclass, for if you participated in some masterclass for school children or for student already, like a one-day course, you might have a version. We do not want to work with this version because it kind of simplifies some stuff. It is meant for school children and therefore might simplify some stuff. So the question that that Dami asked in the chat, if you have to install this, deinstall or uninstall this version, I have to admit I am not sure. So I don't know, because it's a different setting. I do not think that you need to uninstall it. I think it will just install a second MatRad installation because it has a little bit a different name, something with edu, I think. So you should be able to basically follow this link, download it, install it, and then have the new version. But if you see it doesn't work, you might need to deinstall the previous version first that you have or uninstall it. So that's just for those who already have installed something. I think it wouldn't be too bad to also only work with the masterclass version. Just things that we will work differently. They will look a little bit differently. There will be more buttons, something you might be able to change. So let's say if 75% is allowed with this version, 70% is allowed with the masterclass version. So there are some changes, but if you have this and you don't want to go to the install process again, you should also be able to use this. Okay. So then let's go to this link. So if you have these instructions open, you can basically go to this link, and it brings you to, it's the same link first here for both ways. So both of you can basically, like the ones that have MATLAB installed and the ones that have no MATLAB installed can choose this link, and it brings you to the latest release, which is called Blaze. Weird name, but we have this. This might be a weird name, but we have this. We have basically decided on give our releases the prenames of physicists, and this you can think about whose famous physicist's name that is.
Blaise Pascal.
Nice, 100 points, perfect. Blaise Pascal it is. So that's the current release, and there's some information here. And basically you see 3 installers and source code. So what you do is basically, if you need the standalone, you download an installer. It's about a few hundred megabytes, so it takes a while. If you are a MATLAB user, you download the source code, like here, maybe the zip or the tar.gzip file. If you are really confident, and if you are like programmer by heart and know Git, you can in principle also clone it from the repository. The best thing would be to clone then this tag. So you can go on the tag here and clone the Git URL, but that's for the really advanced user. And I don't think it's completely necessary to do this. But if you say, oh, afterwards I would like to start development directly, it might be a good idea to do this. Okay, so far that's that. So if you are so for example, I'm a Windows user and I would download here the exe installer, and I actually already did this. So it's basically here in a folder, and I can directly click it. So I will give you some time to download it. So you can already start with this. Can also already download the code and put it into some folder. I think it takes a while to download. So we also have this DMG installer for Mac. So Hans-Peter can basically show later how this works. First, I will show the Windows installation, and basically the installation is the same thing on Mac. I think just he's a Mac user, I'm a Windows user.
Yeah,
so maybe you can show it on both systems.
Yeah, exactly. There is just 1 or 2 pitfalls that I would like to make aware of, and that's it.
Yes. So there's also this install script for Linux, and I want to make a little bit comments on the systems, so just that you know what you're getting into. So this here, the Linux installer, is the least tested one. So I know that it works on 1 or 2 systems, and basically in most courses, people use Mac or Windows. So the problem also with Linux is, I think we basically tried to get rid of most of the dependencies, but sometimes you just overlook a dependency and it is not installed in Linux. So some package that is not installed. And for Linux users, I always say, if you use Linux, which is a very good operating system, I also somehow expect you to be able to resolve package dependencies. So when you download this and install this, I'm sure that all the software, like MATLAB related and the main MATLAB stuff is there, but there might be something that is missing on the system itself. And there you might then need to figure out on your own if you can get it to run. So that's probably the most difficult thing. For the Mac version, I have tested it on Catalina, I think. And what is the next one, Hans-Peter? You know the Mac versions. Big Sur?
Yes, exactly, Big Sur.
Yes. And you tested it on Big Sur, and it works on Big Sur. Okay.
Exactly.
So that's the systems we tested it there. So this should work, but yes, it's the second least tested system. But in courses often that we give, like now online through the pandemic, people have Mac systems, and there it seems to work also most of the time. So we have, like as Hans-Peter said, there might be some pitfalls, but he will show this. So I hope you're already downloading, because then I can, this is my talk to skip the time while you are downloading, and also to give some information. The next thing is the Windows executable. That's the most tested thing. But also it's not tested on Windows XP or something like this. And probably it's not supported. It should work with Windows 10. And there the best testing is done. So this shows least problems. With older systems, we sometimes have there's some weird bug that occurs with OpenGL. But I think I fixed this here, so it should also work with Windows 7 and so on. So, but if you experience problems, just tell me. Okay, and maybe some background information. We will see this during the installation process, what these installer install. So they do not install a Matlab version for you. They install a so-called runtime. That means basically there is a library installed by the installer that allows to execute Matlab functions, which are basically, let's say, encrypted in this installer. That's the way Matlab compiles software. So they do not want to install a functioning Matlab system and give you a license for free. So they let you work with this runtime. You may have experienced this, for example, with other programs where you have to install this Visual Studio runtime, something, Visual C++, C++ redistributable runtime, and so on. Sometimes this happens. This is like kind of a similar thing. So you need basically the interface and the libraries needs to be provided. So the installation is not 200 megabytes big. There will be something additionally downloaded. And that's where we go now. So basically, I have the installer already downloaded. So it's here, and I will launch it. It will, for Windows, it will require administrator privileges from me, which I just granted. And then something will happen, and the installation screen will show up, and you get some information, and so on. If you have a proxy server or something like this, you can check this in the connection settings, because you need the connection, an internet connection now, which you should have, otherwise it would be quite difficult to attend. And you should know your settings in a sense, so that you can download this. But that's what I meant with the runtime. It will download a quite large package in the background, which is, I think, 1 gigabyte or something. So yes, then you choose an installation folder. I will choose program files MatRad. You can choose a different folder. It plays a role later, so don't forget about it, because unfortunately we cannot change where MatRad installs patients. So, or where these installers install patients. So keep this folder in mind. I never installed it somewhere else, so I cannot say if this like poses a problem, but I don't think so. So I install it there, and now comes a step which unfortunately I already did when testing it. It tells you that for me, it tells that the Matlab runtime, that's what I talked before, is already installed. You now need to go through the steps of downloading the runtime. So unfortunately, I didn't think about uninstalling the runtime as well, so I cannot now show you, and it will take quite a while. So what I will do now, I will keep stuck at the screen for the people that are Windows users, and they will start, if they haven't installed it yet, they will now start downloading the runtime. Some may already have installed it from a previous version or something like that. So then you also wait with me. And I think, Hans-Peter, you show the similar steps until here now on a Mac, okay?
Yes, let's do that. Let's see. Can you now see my screen?
Yes.
So yeah, very similar to what Niklas is showing is the installation for the Mac. So you download the standalone Mac installer here if you don't have a full Matlab installation. And once you have it on your disk, it should be in the download folders. Here right now I have it, I placed it on the desktop, and then you have this DMG file with about 200 megabytes, which you then have to right click on it and open it. And then I guess I already did it also in advance, but it's also asking for administrative rights, which you have to grant. And then here comes the little bit the tricky part is, then you see this window where you again have to right click and open. Since we're not a officially certified developer of Apple, you have to right click on it and open it. So a simple double click will not work, and it will not allow you to install the software. So this is very important for you to do, to right click, always perform a right click, and then you click on open in this drop down menu. And once you have this, then a similar screen appears as Niklas is showing. Yeah, where we just click next, and also you have to basically let the program know where it should be installed. And here I just leave it as it is, so it will be installed to applications and MatRad. And yes, now there is also the requirement to install the Matlab runtime, which I also already did. And then I will click the install button. And since I already downloaded the runtime, it goes rather quick, and the installation is now finished. And I guess.
Yes. Okay, so there are like some people probably stuck at the download button right now. So now I really want to switch. So it goes a little bit like ping-ponging now, but I want to switch to the ones using the code now. So while the others download the runtime in the background. If you have MATLAB installed, so I do not go through the download step of the code itself and unzipping it. I think that's some basic computer knowledge. The thing you should do is that you should place it in some folder, like the code. You unzip it into some folder, and let me show you what happens then. So I just want to prepare my screen like this. So this is basically the MATLAB window. When you start MATLAB, that's what you get. So you can start now doing as MATLAB is an interpreter language. You can now in the command line just start to write things, and it should do something. For example, rand5 gives you a random matrix with entries between 0 and 1 that are that is given here, and 5 means it's a 5 times 5 matrix. So MATLAB works, everything's fine. So I don't want to give an introduction into MATLAB. That's what I said before, but in principle, you have the command window where you can issue commands, call functions, and so on, or scripts. You have the workspace where it shows the variables here, this typical ANS, which you know from the calculators probably, which gives you the last result. So for example, here you can click on it, and you would see basically the contents of my random matrix now. So that's basically here the workspace, the variable workspace, showing you what variables are currently in the memory. You have a command history where you see that I did some weird thing before, so I actually didn't clean it. Hans-Peter would probably directly know what I did here and what I played around with. You see, I played around with robust optimization here, looked at objective function values just by using the command line and the MATRAD installation. So when you have MATRAD installed into some folder, so you see here I have quite a lot of folders, a lot of stuff flying around here. Hopefully nothing So everything is just like some software like SIR, which I mentioned earlier, which is good for contouring. RegGUI is also something that is good for contouring and also has an interface to a Monte Carlo dose calculation. I have some other MATLAB code, but I have a lot of MatRad stuff. I have like my main MatRad development. I have like always a clear installation download of the source code. I have the developments that one of the PhD students does, and I have some other stuff here that are all different developments where I, in parallel, am working on and trying to improve them. So, for example, a primary example of some new functionality that we integrate in cooperation with a group from Canada is the VMAT stuff. So VMAT is rotating therapy. Arc therapy is also similar to VMAT. It's another word to some extent, but you can also mean different things. So, but that's like one example of like how we interact with other researchers there. So this is something that I'm currently working on integrating, for example. And like my code download that I presumably did at some point is now stored in MatRad clean. So this would be now your folder that you would open here in MATLAB in the file browser, and where you unzip the code. So you should see a lot of folders. So I have like these Git folders because I downloaded the code. I didn't download it, I cloned it via the versioning system Git, but you can also just have like the unzipped source code file that you downloaded earlier. And you see I have all these functions here. So I have like a lot of, at the moment, MatRad unfortunately has a lot of functions in the main folder. That's something that will be changed in the next release, where we will move functions to subfolders, so it gets a little bit cleaner. But that's how it should look like. And just once more, to make it clear to everybody, this is the setting that people see that use the code. Okay, you as users of the standalone, or those among you that use the standalone, you will never see such an environment. You will never work with this. The only thing you will see is the graphical user interface. And what you do with the code to start the graphical user interface is basically you use this command window to issue the commands for it. Okay, so in principle, the most important command for you to remember when working with the MATLAB installation and the code is the so-called MatRad GUI, MatRad Graphical User Interface. This is actually a script stored here. You see in the folder. So the script name is also the name of, or basically it's a function. So it's not really a script, it's a function, and the name of the file without the .m is the name of the function. So when you execute this, so I hope I have cleaned up everything in my environment well enough so that it works without problems, you should get the MATLAB user interface. And this is like this gray part here. For those of you who use the standalone, this is what you will see all the time. So you will, like with a MATLAB installation, I will now be able, and I will do this during the hands-on at multiple points. As I said, let's say 75% is doable through the user interface. The rest teaches you how to use code. So in between sessions, I will or during the tutorials, I will minimize this and do something in the code, like call some function, or set some parameters and so on. And then you can follow this. But this will be something that basically that how the people with code and MATLAB will do. Okay, so this is the most important function, and you see that this function also starts to for the MATLAB users among you, adds everything to the path and so on. So every function is now known to the MATLAB environment. So the important point is that you always start off from this path and start with this function. You see there's a warning here that I need to get rid of at some point, but for now it's not that important. Okay, so one important point for you is where the patient files are. So the patient files are in the phantoms folder. So you see 5 files stored. You see a box phantom, a head and neck, a liver, a prostate, and the TG119. So that's 5 files. All these 4 here are from the so-called court data set that I mentioned earlier. It's freely available files. These are actually patients, or like, let's say not necessarily patients. They are voluntary humans that decided to lie to put themselves in a CT scanner and let their body imaged. They don't have. I'm not sure if all of them, but I think all of them don't really have a tumor. It was basically artificially changed afterwards to make a set for treatment planning, because it's regulation-wise easier to provide an open data set that is from a voluntary healthy patient than from a voluntary sick patient. I think that was the idea behind it, but you can read the publication on the core data set. Might also be a little bit different than that, what I say, but that's the patient phantoms, let's say. And this is not a patient. If you open this and you think it's a patient, that would be a very weird looking patient. That's basically a phantom for use with the double APM TG119 report on dose optimization problems. So it's a water box that has a measurement hole in it where you can put an ionization chamber, and there is some structures are delineated on it. So someone puts structures there, and then you can benchmark optimization problems there. The box phantom is really just a water box without anything. It's just an artificial box of water. It's not existing. This is like really an image of a water phantom, and this is basically an artificial box. We will use both of those as well, because sometimes it's very easy to learn something from these geometries, because they are very simple. You see the features that you want to see, but we will also work with these patient files that give you a more realistic idea of what is happening. And maybe I use this while the others maybe still download the runtime in the background, to give you the first lesson on how you can use MatRad, both from the command line and from the user interface. So, for example, when you open the user interface, you, for example, see that there's a load button. And you could use this to directly navigate to your patients and load them. That's what you would anyways do when you work with the standalone. But just to give you an impression, you could also just choose any file that you find in your workspace that is a patient, like randomly, and for example, load the box phantom. This would basically just work like this, and you see now structures appear in my workspace. We will discuss them in more detail probably tomorrow, or if we have like a lot of time left, we can also look at them. Or let's take a little bit of look at them. So that's the CT. That's like the CT representation. It contains a Hounsfield unit cube, some dimensionality infos. So that's basically just representing the data in a very simple format in Matlab. There is the CST, which basically contains structure information. In particular, it contains some settings for display and biology, or also like the list, the binary mask. So we will come to this in more detail. But this just loads the patient. This ANS is still like the last this matrix here, so I can also delete it. But you see that it's quite easy from Matlab to look into the files, into the variables, and see what is going on there. And you can also use the command line to basically then look at these these variables like this, and then you see, okay, the dimensionality of my CT cube is 160 times 160 times 160 voxels. So and if I want to know how many voxels are in my CT cube in total, I could do like the product of this and would end up with a number. So that's, for example, how we use MatRad. So basically we calculate something and then we explore the results, explore the variables. Maybe we stop Matlab during execution and check some variables. So that's what I did here, for example. So that's this way of using it, and you can do some nice things that you cannot do and can interfere with computations that you cannot do from the user interface, and you would never be able to really do from a commercial system because this interference is not really possible. You need to rely on what's implemented in the user interface there or in the scripting interface, and if it is not there, you have never access to it. So that's basically coming back to the reasons of why we chose to start with MatRad. And the nice thing is I can basically here just now refresh and the loaded phantom will show up, and you see it's really a water box. Just gives you kind of Hounsfield units of -1000 here. That means it's air, and Hounsfield units of 0, meaning it's water in the within the patient, so like within the box. And there's a structure here delineated which serves as target. So that's basically how you can interact. You can advance with scripting and calling commands, but then keep the user interface up to date. And that's something that we will do from time to time during the tutorials. Of course, you can just do also the step by clicking on this button, choose a phantom. Let's take the prostate, for example, and then it will load it directly into the user interface. But at the same time, you can then also just go back here to the scripting window and to the command window and the variables, and now you will see you have a different cube here. Has a little bit more information, has some DICOM information because the original files were DICOM, but that's now the prostate cube lying there. So that's basically how we will use both of these functionalities, user interface and commands. Of course, it will not be just looking at variables. We will also change some stuff in there. And
yeah, this is the duality you were earlier talking about.
Yes, script versus user interface, and you can use both at the same time. So that's basically things that you can set up. Or that's basically what you should be able to do when you use the code for now. Let's now go to the
standalone install.
Standalone. So my installer was at this stage. So it basically wanted to install the runtime. It was already there. If you now installed it, you should basically be past that step. Maybe it still downloads, but there's enough time, maybe even overnight, to install it. And maybe some of you, or hopefully some of you, have already installed it. So as you see, the main installation step of MatRad is really quite quick. So this worked quite quickly. So now basically MatRad should be installed somewhere. And for me, it's installed in program files. Maybe you have created what I want to say, an icon on the desktop. So basically you just navigate to the folder where you installed it. So for example, I just, let me just prepare this like here. So what you see here is that you basically, this is like the installation folder, and in Windows you see like multiple folders there. And the relevant folder for you is the application folder, where it has the executable file. And as I said before, we cannot choose on Windows where it installs the phantom files. in this folder, which is like not a very convenient location, it also installs the phantom files. So that's something to keep in mind. So, but you can start the executable here or from a desktop icon, or you can use, like in Windows, the search field here. Sorry that everything here is in German, but my Windows is in German. But you can basically just type MatRad, and then you should also be able to execute it. But basically, you go to this. You can also go to this place and then just execute it, and you will get this splash screen, which then vanishes, and then you get the same user interface. This is now not running from Matlab here. So I can actually now, I won't close it. So I have two user interfaces now. I have the one that loaded the prostate and the other one that is running from the standalone. It's completely independent of Matlab. So if you don't have Matlab installed, it should have also worked now. Only thing you needed was the runtime. And now basically I have to remember where I was. I can now load the patient data here, click on load mat data, and it will open the window. We'll go to MatRad applications. For me, it directly opened. It's the same path as where before started MatRad from. So here, if I show all files, here you see it's the matrad.exe, but the mat files are here. And I basically can now load the same patient here just by clicking on the prostate.mat, and it will load it. I don't have access to the variables or to the workspace now in the background, but I see the whole user interface and I can start doing things now. So what I would like...
Should I quickly show it on Mac?
Yes, maybe that's a good idea. Show quickly how to arrive at the user interface, because I'm actually not sure at the moment how the patient files are stored there. So I will stop sharing quickly.
Screen. So yeah, I have this window which basically says the installation is completed now successfully. I hit the finish button, and then we have to navigate to the location where MatRad was installed. And per default on a Mac, you have to go to your applications folder, and in there will be a MatRad folder, and then you have to navigate basically to this application folder. It's very similar to what Niklas was showing on Windows, but yeah, the most important difference is that it will be in the applications folder. And there you can see now a matrad.app application, which you can simply start, right-click, and open. Yeah, if you do that, then if you started for the first time, then in my case, it took like almost 30 seconds to start up. But after that, at some point, the graphical user interface should appear with an empty screen. And now let's load one patient also. So where basically I would like to show you how to navigate to the patients. And here I again click on the load.mat button, and then I go to applications, navigate down. Well, let's sort it. And here is my MatRad installation. I go into the subfolder application, and then there is the subfolder called phantoms. And in there, I see all the phantoms, and I now just, I don't know, click on the box phantom to also see if I can successfully load this very simple synthetic structure. And yes, now it successfully appears. Yeah, that's it. But Niklas, before I hand back over to you, I also wanted to quickly show our wiki page on GitHub for people who would like to get a little bit more exposed to MatRad. Then, of course, the best starting point is the open source publication. But besides that, our wiki page is also, I guess, quite extensive, where we have a couple of different pages where we explain in detail different aspects of MatRad. And just to give you an example here, I opened up the dose influence matrix calculation, and here we basically explain how the dose is being calculated within MatRad, and also provide links to scientific references that have been used or re-implemented, so to say. And yeah, to end with, I just wanted to show you my favorite wiki page, which is the coordinate system in MatRad, because it's nicely illustrates the coordinate system MatRad is using and how the external radiation is basically guided into the patient. And here you see this screen, so to say, and we have in this case a linear accelerator. And the orange thing is basically a synthetic patient lying on the patient couch. And yeah, there are typically two different angles one can define in treatment planning. And Niklas is going to talk about that in far more detail tomorrow. But this is basically an animation of different gantry angles that could be used for a treatment plan. And yeah,
go to the last one. That's the best one.
Okay. Here you see an animation when the gantry angle and the couch angle changes simultaneously, and by this you can basically guide the radiation from different angles into the patients. And this is basically up to the treatment planner on how you select these angles, which will be in our case, it will be manually defined by the treatment planner. But yeah, I basically just wanted to show you that there is also a wiki page where you can find additional information on certain subtopics. And yeah, if you want to get a little bit more exposed to MatRad, then this is definitely a good starting point.
Okay. I want to just like chip in because I had like a question. Like one asked to repeat the stuff on how to work with the code. I basically just wrote the main steps there in the chat so that I don't have to tell it again. The other question that I got as a direct message was if we have a DICOM data available. So these MAT files in the Phantoms folder, maybe Hans-Peter, you can show it quickly. In the Phantoms folder, or like you had it just open in Matlab, or maybe there. Like these MAT files, they were basically, most of them were imported as DICOM data. So they are just DICOM data that is basically already put into a format that is a little bit quicker to read for Matlab and already has the structures how MatRad uses them. You can import DICOM data with the DICOM importer. So if you're interested in trying something with your own data, you can try to import it. I don't do this in this tutorial because point number one, you may all have like different DICOM data at your institutions, and then some tags are there, some not, and suddenly something doesn't work. But in principle, there's a load DICOM button, as Hans-Peter just showed here, that you can start, and then you can browse your folder, and if it has a CT and an RT struct, you should be able to import. Might not work in any case, so that's why we use the pre-made files that come with MatRad, let's say. But in principle, you should be able to import. You can also import by script if the importer fails, and tweak the import by yourself if you have some special needs there. So that was just a question I received as a direct question. We don't have DICOM data, right? So
no,
I don't have something on my computer that I want to import and show you. I have it's my home computer. I don't really have patient files here, and so that's a little bit. And also, if I would have patient files, I don't really want to import them because it's patient files that they may not have agreed to sharing the data publicly and their CTs. So there are like some websites where you can download DICOM data to try it out. For example, the Cancer Imaging Archive is a good starting point. I think there's like in one of my research collaborations, we started to use this from for head and neck. There's a good data set on head and neck patients there. It's quite a lot, and you can download them and try to import them and work with them. But I don't have DICOM data at the moment available and don't want to go into the DICOM import. But just to know, there is a DICOM importer, and you can also, if you want, you could even try one or two exercises with self-imported data if the import works. but I guess that's something to try after the school to see if you can get your own data running. And if you experience an error during things like that, like during a DICOM import, you go into GitHub, you go into issues, bug report, my DICOM import doesn't work. This is what's happening. So you see here the issues. There are some bugs, and not always is it really a bug. Sometimes it's something that you experience as a bug, but is actually maybe not a feature, but maybe a safeguard for us, or for you.
Yeah,
So
exactly, since especially for the DICOM import where we did not test it, the import from every different vendor and DICOM format that's out there. So
yeah, you might have a very weird coordinate system or stuff like this. So there might things be happening.
But yeah, if you encounter an error, then the best place always is to go to our GitHub page here under issues and report your new issues, and then basically you start a discussion with us and all other people.
Like for the tutorial, of course, it will probably not make so much sense to start 50 issues on GitHub. So for the next days, you basically have us and you have the Google Docs. And if we say, oh, this seems like a real bug, then it might be a good idea for an issue. But for the course, you have like direct access to us, and there it might be like most easiest way to discuss issues that arrive just by chat or by a Google Doc, how it was handled and so on.
Exactly, Niklas, I wanted to see if we get some feedback even right now through the chat, how many they were successful. If people are successful, please write yes. And if you managed to install, if you have, okay.
Yes, a lot of yes. Maybe I can have a statistical analysis then on where it didn't work, and then I can have like a very nice phase, like a randomized phase 3 trial in a sense here, because there was, well, no, it's not randomized because there is a bias in what people probably joined the Zoom. So, but that's really nice when it works. So you all should there's someone still downloading, so that's half yes, I would say. At least the runtime is downloading. So I will show you a few steps that you should test to see if it is really completely running. There are also reactions I just see. Where are the reactions in Zoom? When I look the participants. Yes, there is like one checkbox, one check mark, a green one. Okay, good. I will share my screen again and basically go with you through a very simple process. It's not yet treatment planning. It's just checking that everything works. It's just clicking the least amount of buttons to see if everything works. So let me share my screen again. Why can I do it? Now it comes perfect. Okay, so now you see the user interface again. And I really want to load a very simple patient so that it doesn't take so long. So you can also keep the prostate or whatever you have loaded. I just choose something where everything looks very obvious. So I choose the box phantom. That's everything in water. We already know a little bit how protons or photons or carbon ions in water look like. So we saw some stuff in the lectures about that, like an idealized Bragg peak or something like this. So basically, when you have loaded this and nothing else is open. So that's also a process for both the code users, like the Matlab with code users, and the standalone users. So when you have loaded this, the first thing you should do is you click on this button here, which is called Calculate Influence Matrix, MX. Tomorrow, you will learn what it means. Today, you just click it. It's just a test for running, and there will be an image coming up. And it runs somewhat quickly and nothing happens. And if this is what's happening, then everything's fine so far. There should also not be issues there. If you arrived at this point, it's very unlikely that you will experience an issue there. When you have done this, this button, the optimize button, becomes active. And this is the part where, let's say I expect a few issues. And these are also the issues where we can offer the least help, because this interfaces our optimizer, and on some systems this might lead to problems. But what you do next is you click optimize here, and there should like a window should pop up. It can also pop up somewhere in the background. It should do something, and you should end up with an image like this. Like this window will stay open in the background, and you see something happened. We will learn what happened tomorrow morning. And you should end up with a dose. And this is a photon dose. Looks quite obviously like a photon dose. So it has like a high entrance dose and then the exponential decay. So red is high, blue is low, then an exponential decay throughout the water phantom. The same you would see, or something quite similar you would see on another patient, or on a prostate, on the TG119, on liver, I don't know. So if you arrive at this step, then for you, everything works and you shouldn't have any major problems continuing. There might still be, you might click somewhere in the remaining process, like in the next days, you might click somewhere and something might fail, and then you will be sad and need to restart Matlab or something like this. But if you arrive at the step, everything is correctly installed and there shouldn't be any major problems anymore. Okay, so that is basically the test we wanted to do wanted to do today. So for the ones that use code, there's also a very simple way to test everything apart from that. So I minimize this. So just once more, after you have loaded a phantom, just with the main settings, the default settings, click on calculate influence MX, wait for it to run through, and then click on optimize. See if something happens, if this window with these values pops up and you get a dose in the end. If this works, you are set and ready to go. For the code users, you can also basically try the following. You can just type MatRad, which is the name of our default script that runs a default example workflow, and just let it run. Yes. So what happens now? Something happens. It does all the steps by itself. So you see a lot of console output here about the photon dose calculation. And then it does an optimization. That's what's happening with this window. Takes surprisingly long. And then it ends up, it opens the user interface, it opens some plan analysis. And that's it, I think. So that's also a good way to test it. If at some point the command window is getting red and you have an error, or like when you do it from the user interface and an error pops up, then something is not going right with this very simple workflow, and then you might have issues also in the next days, major issues. But if this runs through, you're basically set for the tutorials. Okay, I will stop sharing for now. And see if there's any major problems, or if everybody's happy so far and manages with the standard workflows, or maybe still installing. But we still have like 15 minutes to discuss issues that happens or to answer questions. If someone uses Linux and experiences mistakes, this would also be experiences bugs and errors, that would also be a good time to maybe ask for a hint to a solution. So feel free to tell us your issues or if something doesn't work at all.
Now we can take the questions online. Either raise hand or write in the chat or just unmute and ask your questions.
Is it really working everywhere?
Then you have all the masterclass students and other course students that.
We have one raised hand as far as I have seen. Sanjib, right? You can talk.
Sanjib, speak up if there was a problem or if you have a question.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah. Now we can hear you.
So I downloaded the zip file, then I extracted there. So after then, I just what to do with Matlab. I just opened the file. Then which file I have to open? The whole file MatRad or something else like one only that matrad.m gui.m that one or whole file?
Okay, let me maybe show it again for you because we still have time. So I clear all my workspace here. So what you have to do in Matlab is the following. So when you have extracted the files, let me move something around here and then share. So when you have extracted the files, you really make sure that you are in the folder where you extracted the files. Okay. So this here is really the folder where I extracted the files into. So you see, you really have to be in there so that MATLAB finds your next command. And what you then do when you are in this folder, you do not have to open a particular file. You can open this file in the editor, like I can do it, and it will not tell you much. It is like a very long function. So here you see it's like 4,279 lines of code. Won't help you a lot at the moment. But you can open it and then click on run here. That would be an option.
That I have done.
Yes, and then, or the other thing that you can do is basically just go here into the command line and type the name in the command window. And what happens then is that you basically have the user interface.
Okay.
And then you load patient files via the load mat button. For example, a phantom, like which is in the same folder. There's a phantoms folder, and there you can load the patients.
Yeah, I got your point. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sanjib, and you do have a MATLAB installation, right?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Then,
No, I have done this, but I'm just asking, is this the process or anything else or something? That's all.
okay.
That's the main process. We will work with maybe different options. We will explore like, variables from here and so on. So as long as the user interface is open and you're in the folder, you have done the most important things. If you do not work with the user interface at all, you can also, or you do not want to start from this, you can also start basically with just typing MatRad, which I did before, which then does this
automated treatment plan.
yes, it does automatically a workflow that basically, so that's how we work a lot with it. So basically I write a script for an analysis I want to do, and then it just runs. So maybe if you want to, for those who have the code installed and want to play around with it a little bit, there's a chat. Always on the Mac, I can't find application inside MatRad. So maybe Hans-Peter, you have something that's going on there, but I don't know if the bug report gives enough information. So have you installed it correctly?
Maybe you want to share your screen, Angelica. If you can share screen, it will be easier.
Yes, of course. Just a moment.
Hans-Peter, I entrust you
Yeah.
with this problem. My voice is kind of fading.
Otherwise, or I can also show it one more time, the installation process. So I assume you downloaded the MatRad installer from our release page, which basically needs to have the name Mac64 in it. And then you simply right click on it, open, and then this window shows up, and then here you again do right click, open, and then the installer starts. And I assume you successfully installed everything. And basically at the first or second page of the install itself, it's asking for the location where it should be installed. And per default, it is the application folder of your Mac. And then it creates a subfolder, MatRad, and inside there, everything will be installed. Let's see. So in my case, I simply navigate to applications, and in there should be a folder called MatRad. And this is simply directly, the path to it is simply on my hard drive, applications, MatRad. And once you are here, then again, right click and open the application. But if the problem does still exist, then maybe you can share your screen so that we can do.
Sorry, I'm Angelica. I had some problem. I don't know if I can share now the screen.
Go ahead.
Can I share the screen now?
Yes, please. Yes, yes. Share the screen.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I have this one.
Okay. I think this one is the source code, and the installer is the very first.
This one. Okay.
Yeah. If you exactly.
So I should open. Sorry, it's in Italian.
Yes. And then you have to, okay, no, that's, yeah, here you have to provide your credentials. And then next.
Okay, because I think that I already done this process.
Okay, good.
So it's a little bit strange, but I have to redo it.
If you have already done it, then in principle, no, you don't have to redo it again. Then it should be, if you navigate to your Finder and to applications, then it should be there. Applicazioni.
Maybe here.
No.
No, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Where? It's fine.
Can you see?
Okay, sorry.
And there it is.
Okay, sorry.
And then you go to applications. And then,
this one.
Yeah, right click.
Okay.
Open. Good.
Okay, thanks you a lot.
You're welcome. And the phantoms can also be found here in that folder.
This one.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I have to wait a minute for the opening, I think.
Yeah, in my case, it took 30 or 40 seconds the first time, but
yes, the system that's behind it caches some files and so on. So it takes usually a while the first try to open it, and then suddenly it becomes much faster. Like if it doesn't work, I think Hans-Peter already said it, the best way is to use the right click and open. That's usually one of the reasons why it doesn't fail. That's because of this developer certification and whatsoever, which we don't bother to get.
Okay.
Yeah, but you can basically cancel this installation here because you already installed it correctly.
Okay,
here, you can click on cancel.
Okay, thank you a lot.
Yeah. Okay, I have like one more question on the Google Docs. Why do you recommend to install from a source code over the standalone version? as I said before, is the reason is that we can do more things. Like if you have the standalone version, you can only use the user interface. And I will do some stuff, and Hans-Peter also, we will do some stuff during the tutorials, the hands-on tutorials that will also involve simple simple statements in the command window, for example. And that's something you cannot do from the standalone. The standalone only provides the user interface. So you can take part in, I think I said 75% of the course, but some part will be only accessible to those who have the installation. Mm-hmm. It might seem unfair that this is the way, but I also think that just watching what you can do and how this works, because treatment planning itself is a very computational process. It's good to understand what is happening from a technical point of view behind the scenes. So that's why we do this. We want to show it to those that don't have the possibilities to interact with the code. But if you have Matlab and you can use it from the source code, that's the preferred way, because you can do more things. If you say, I don't care, I just want to follow, you can install from also the standalone. And if you say, I don't want to do anything, I just want to watch, then you can install nothing. If you have the possibility, I would just recommend to use it with the code.
I think that the phrase you just used describes it pretty well, which is looking behind the scenes. So it allows you really to look behind the scenes and understand what the algorithms output, and you can basically better understand, and we can also better explain the concepts of treatment planning when we look behind the scenes.
Yeah, for example, explaining how the one algorithm aligns the brag peaks. It's very easy to explain when you have access to the data structures that show you how this is stored behind the scenes. So how the spot grid is existing in the language of the computer. So then you can just show, here's the coordinates, here's this. You can modify a coordinate, you can change your CT or something like this. These are all things you can't do from a standalone application, where you can just click and you basically have to rely that this information is provided somewhere by the programmers. With the source code, you have access to everything that is basically going on. So it also depends on you how deep you want to look into it. Like if you are not interested in how basically the planning behind works, if you just want to see some nice dose distributions, then you can also just use the standalone. There's another Mac problem. I see you have 3 files in your folder. Where did you have 3 files? I don't know. I have another direct message about the educational version of MatRad that was provided in the one-day courses, which had nothing to do with today's course in a sense. You can delete this if you want. So just that was a direct message to me.
Okay, Niklas, if there are no more questions, urgent questions, I see that is almost 6. Mm-hmm. Time for our social events, and in fact, in order for more people to benefit, Manjit is going to give this networking presentation here on Zoom, and then with a glass of wine or your preferred drink, we can move to Spatial, and I will give now the pilotage to Rebecca, who was also suggesting actually this nice tool, Spatial Chat. So here I think we have to thank the DKFZ team. That was, for me, it was really very nice, this tutorial. I'm amazed that even online and with so many participants, we managed to do so many things. And yeah, I pass the pilotage to Rebecca. Rebecca, you are there, right? Yeah.
Yes, you can hear me, yes?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, Jutta. Thank you to the DKFZ speakers and also to all of you for attending. So I believe that was officially the end of today's lectures. And now we have this evening's social events. These are not part of the attendance certificate, so they're optional. However, we think this is going to be a much more interactive environment, so we encourage you to participate and stay and network and talk to us. So it aims to be around an hour long, but of course you can stay as long as you want. There's nothing to stop you for staying longer if you're having a good time socializing. So as you may have seen from